Hi, it's Doc Talk. We're coming up on another holiday, my very favorite holiday of the year, which is the 4th of July. It truly means summer is here, and we have the opportunity to be outside. This is the middle of travel season. It is a time to make memories, and it always helps that I have a birthday that's a couple weeks away. But beyond that, 4th of July is a very great time of the year. On Doc Talk today, the timely issues that relate to the 4th of July really are threefold. One is it's pure heat, and so much of the country now is in the midst of a real heat wave. Number two, what do people do when they get hot? They jump in the water, and we've had a lot of unfortunate deaths recently related to water. And then third is, I think the busiest burn time of the year is right around the 4th of July. And some of it relates to fireworks, et cetera. So let's talk about those three topics. First, in talking about heat, we talked about acclimating your body to heat and how that occurs in America for the most part, May and June. And we rarely have heat emergencies occur in August and September. So the transition zone is, of course, July. And a number of places in the country really have been cold. And it wasn't too many weeks ago that they were having snow in the upper north part of the country, particularly out towards the Rockies. And there are still ski resorts open out there from all the snow. But a rapid warm up over 100 degrees in Texas and up through the Central Plains. And our producer is from Kansas City and is talking about how very, very hot it is there. So at this time of the year, you need to, of course, drink extra fluids and remind yourself that those extra pounds are meant to be put on this time of the year to give you the water reserves that you need. And so you go ahead and drink the fluids that you need, most of them non-alcoholic. So let's be honest. And then you need to eat a sufficient amount of food to keep the water in your body. Just remember those two things kind of go together. Number two, gradually expose yourself to the heat. You cannot acclimate your body if you're in air conditioning all the time. And if you haven't been out in the heat and have been working a lot as you get through the month of June, and then are going to be outside for the entire 4th of July weekend and on vacation the next couple of weeks, you're asking for trouble if you don't bring yourself into the warmer environment a little at a time. So please, as your body learns to address the heat again, make sure that you do it in a rational way and that you don't go out the first day. You also have a lot of heat produced in the sunshine. And if the first thing you do is go out and get sunburned, that is one of the conditions that traps more heat within your body and will cause you a lot more problems, not only from the sunburn itself, but then from the heat effects on your body. When you have a chance, let fresh air go around your body. So if you're out in the heat, but put a fan on, sit on the porch and have a fan on so that you're in enough heat, but you're moving air around your body and you give it a little body surface area that is exposed. That's the natural air conditioning of your body, is moisture on a skin surface. And that is, again, teaching your body to be really efficient with cooling itself down, and that's how you do it. Make sure you sleep well at night, and that you drink during the evening hours. And although you don't want to be up all night peeing, it is a good idea to refresh your body at night and reclaim a little bit of that water that you lost during the day. All right, for emergency responders, we know that heat emergencies, the most important symptom is an altered mental status. Altered mental status, and that is it. Skin color, the modeling of skin, red skin, white skin, doesn't do it. It is all about mental status. And somebody who's getting in trouble, in serious trouble with heat, it's about them getting confused, disoriented, clumsy, not able to think correctly. Sometimes they feel cold. They think they're cold and they put additional layers on. This is clearly abnormal, and they need to have a couple things done immediately. Removed from the heat, put in a cool environment, including, and for emergency responders, we all know cold water immersion is the immediate treatment for a heat stroke, a true heat emergency. We do not wait for rapid pulse, change in skin color, for a thermometer run across the skin surface. Terribly misleading. The only accurate way to assess serious heat emergencies in the human body is mental status. And when you begin to get too hot, your body goes into a false process of recreating more and more heat and not being able to turn down. It shuts down blood supply to the brain and you get confused, disoriented, and that is a heat emergency. It requires immediate cooling. For emergency responders, this is not about IV fluids. It's not about blood sugar checks, et cetera. It's about getting the person cooled down as rapidly as possible. After you have cooled them down in the field, you do not want them shivering, which recreates the heat, okay? But you want to cool them down immediately, and absolutely all of them have to be taken in for emergency evaluation in the ED. Many times afterwards is when they have things like terrible heat cramps, and can begin vomiting, et cetera. The other piece to this is in somebody who's cool and altered, don't start pouring cold liquids into them. They'll throw them right back up, which even worsens the problems more. So a reminder, in 4 or 5 days is going to be what's called the Peachtree Road Race, which is 60,000 people running a 10K race in Atlanta, Georgia, on one of the hottest days of the year. The Peachtree Road Race, every year at the end of the race, there is a first aid cooling tent. Every year, there's at least 200 people that go through that tent. That tent takes care of all those individuals based on mental status and their ability to think through very clearly what that race means. What that race means is you have a chip in your shoe that you have to turn in at the end to get credit for running it. At the end, you get a t-shirt. It's the most valued piece of clothing ever in Atlanta, Georgia, is the Peachtree Road Race shirt that changes every year to match the color of the year. And every one of the 60,000 people coming across that line is looking to get to their shirt. And the number 3 thing they're looking for is their family or the MARTA station to get back to their family so that they can go for the rest of the 4th of July celebration. And so there are train spotters at the end of the Peachtree Road Race, very, very accurate at assessing 60,000 people running in front of them and being able to pull the individuals out who have had too much heat. They pull them out, they drag them over, they're brought into the first aid cooling tent, and the only treatment is superficial cooling. They have 55-gallon barrels full of wet towels and ice water and a little bit of bleach to keep them clean. And as those 200 or so people are moved into the tent, they lay them down. They don't give them anything to drink. They begin cooling them with those towels. Essentially, nobody has any significant clothing on, so that's not a part of the process. There are a few that run in uniform for whatever they're supporting. They have to come out of that uniform and down to their racing shorts. Their shoes come off. They get cooling towels across their head, cooling towels in their axilla, cooling towels in their groin, and they're left there for about 10 minutes. If in 10 minutes, they're not thinking about the chip in their shoe and where the t-shirt tent is, they have a mental status change. Then you begin to watch people wander over to those cots. What's going on with this individual? Hey, they're 10 minutes here and they're not clearing. And then they double down on the amount of cool stuff they have on them. They start thinking through, is this the 1 or 2 a year that we have that have true heat emergencies? And within about 30 minutes, in general, everybody has moved through that cycle and they've cooled down. Some people take a little bit longer. And some of those people are on medicines or have other medical condition that make them more susceptible, and they just take a little bit longer to cool down. But then there's the one or two that are still altered. And typically that's obvious at about 15 or 20 minutes. Guess what their treatment is? They get 0 IV fluids. There's never a drop of IV fluid in that tent. IV fluid is not the treatment for a heat emergency. Instead, they are loaded into a cold medic unit with enough wet stuff to get them through a trip to the closest hospital, where there's a cardiovascular bypass team on standby. Typically, still after our surface cooling, their temperatures at 106 or 107 degrees core, and they go on cardiopulmonary bypass, and that is the treatment. So understand, true heat emergencies in our world, sports, works, fire incidents, somebody who's caught in the heat accidentally because they've had too much to drink or otherwise impaired. That's a heat emergency. We recognize that. We would recognize warm skin. We would recognize altered mental status, immediate removal from heat, cooling, transfer to a center that has cardiopulmonary bypass capability. That's our management. So that's heat. This time of the year, a big concern because our bodies haven't fully acclimated yet. Number two thing, we jump in the water to cool down. This is always the unfortunate time of the year for drownings, and they have been happening recently. They've been happening in freshwater bodies of water, where people get into areas that they're not familiar with, or they get injured as they go into the water and then drown. Freshwater drownings, if found quickly, immobilized spine, if you're not sure of how they went into the water, bring them out. Airway is really important. Bagging is very important. And after bagging, then chest compressions if they are pulseless. What has been a really big death knell this year in drownings has been riptides in our gulfs and oceans. We've had way too many in Florida, and that relates to the condition of the tides as they've been coming in. So riptide is a situation where there's a stretch of water where the predominant current is outflowing away from the shore, and people get caught in those when it's not obvious, and they get pulled out, and then they try to go back towards the shore because the shore is in that direction and they're swimming towards it, but the current is moving so quickly away that they're pulled further and further out. If you're in this situation and you're not familiar with riptides and you're going in the oceans or the Gulf, the correct way of getting yourself out of one of those is actually to swim parallel to the shore, to recognize then with your body when the situation is turned around and you have an area that's moving back towards the shore. And in that way, you kind of catch the waves and you're able to swim to get back to shore. So your natural inclination is to make a beeline right at the shore, and that's what kills people. And then they have rescuers go in to try to pull them out, and then rescuers are killed, including recently a firefighter who went in to rescue young people, got caught in the tide, and couldn't get anybody out of it, and there were multiple deaths. So if you're going to the shores, talk to the lifeguards, very much respect the red flags and other warnings of riptides. And then if you would get caught in something like that, turn off your instincts. Instead, move away parallel to the shore and find the areas. If not all of the water can be rushing out, there has to be points on either side where the water is going back in towards the shore, and it gets into a loop that goes like that. And you want to be back into one of those areas where it's either neutral or moving back towards the shore, and then you're swimming back in. If there are people who are caught in riptides and are being sucked out, if you're not a professional rescuer and a great swimmer, don't get caught in that and die yourself. And so that's our water this time of year. And then the third thing I want to talk about, because we use a lot of flames around the 4th of July holiday. And we use them to light fireworks and firecrackers, and we light sparklers for the kids. And then we have bonfires and campfires and cooking fires, and the grills are working, et cetera. So this is really a common time of the year for burns. Burns are awful, awful, awful conditions for human beings. And you don't want to have it happen to you. So prevention is really number one, to pay full attention to lighting the grill, lighting a fire. Don't overuse any of the hydrocarbon products as fire starters. No kids around, no distractions for you around. Be completely sober as you're working around fires and grills and other things. And then firecrackers, fireworks, and sparklers are all high temperature devices. They will all stick to the skin. And that's one of the predominant things that happens with those products. Once they are lit and they're burning at a very high temperature, if they come into contact with the skin, they will stick to the skin. And then you're trying to pull off whatever it is. And of course, as you're trying to pull something off of some part of your body, you're burning additional area for you. And we see sparklers that are attached. Those are burning at a high temperature. If they get against, for example, the child's skin, it begins to attach itself and then burn further into the skin. Same thing happens with firecrackers that you accidentally would leave in your hand. Now, obviously, some parts may explode and pop away from you. But if any of those burning elements get caught against your skin, they burn very heavily, as well as tear open your skin during explosions. So we don't want that to happen. A couple of weeks ago, we had a big national meeting, and they talked about new methods of burn care. And one of the really important developments that has come about, we'll even say in the last couple of weeks, is that they're looking at a treatment that consists of something that's very simple, which is a burn of the skin requires 20 minutes of cooling water rushing over it. 20 minutes of cooling water. That is different than gels and packs and other things. And there is some evidence to think that if we attack all burns that way using cold water irrigation of the burn, that we will reduce the size and the depth of burn. The quicker it can be done, obviously, the better. And obviously, you're removing whatever's burning, you remove the burning source, but then begin cooling the skin, 20 minutes, continuous irrigation. I would, that this weekend, if something happened to me or one of my family members, that would be my treatment, and not trying to put anything else on it. And Lord knows there are so many home remedies and stuff that's on the internet about mayonnaise and honey and butter and raw meat and other things. None of that is the cure for a burn. Don't put any of that stuff on it. Cold water, and then a dressing, and a big enough, bad enough, painful enough burn, you're going to your healthcare provider, the emergency department, for care. So it is going to be a great summer this summer. We're not talking about infectious diseases. We're not talking about COVID. We're talking about fun, and we're talking about family, and we're talking about making memories in the summer of 2023. So please enjoy, please be safe, and we'll see you as we get further into August and you've all acclimated to heat by then. Have a great holiday.